look into Beyond Biocentrism by Dr. Robert Lanza, he makes the case that there really is no out there, that everything we're immersed in is a product of mind. And it's not too far-fetched that if there is such a probability field where material reality is, the waveforms collapsed by human consciousness through the human brain, that a more advanced population who had mastery of the way the human brain functions could send such a probability wave to the brain, and we would automatically collapse the waveform into a material reality, and they could basically make us see anything they wanted us to see. But the phenomena, as Keel calls it, seems to be very selective. There's certain families that are tracked, certain last names. If it was a random thing, then you'd find Johnsons and Smiths, but you don't. You get oddball names like Adamski and Heflin. So he believed that it was a selective process where individuals and small groups, particularly psychic individuals who can see into the electromagnetic superspectrum a little farther than normal, are seeing these objects, these flying saucers, and people in their proximity can often see them too.
Now, hey, Russ, we got to take a break for the radio stations. So we'll be back in about 2.5 minutes. I'm going to put you on hold. So if you want to get a cup of Java or something, go get it now. Or if you have to run into the bathroom, take it now.
Okay.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Check out Night Dreams website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
Well, that is me. We're talking to Russ. We're getting into aliens. We're getting back in time, like the pyramids, Antarctica, and all that stuff. I do have a question for you, Russ. And this is a biggie, okay? I also have been getting messages, emails, that people are saying that they hear that there is one species of aliens that are working with our government, that Well, I'm going to actually say Mary Joyce runs a reporting center out of Cashiers, North Carolina. And she's had actually a government person high up back, maybe a year or so ago, give her information that these aliens are sharing technology. Now, what she claims that these type of aliens that are, giving the technology go back to Eisenhower administration. Also, these are the type of aliens you don't want to meet because they are cannibals. And supposedly that the agreement they had, even going back to Eisenhower time, they would supply technology to our planet, to our military, in exchange where they could abduct a certain amount of people. But from what she has gathered and with the information that she's got, they didn't live up to their commitment. They abducted a lot of people. Now, my question for you is, there's a lot of people go missing. I'm not talking just in the city, people going like you did. You traveled the country. There's people going from point A to point B, never make it. Now, yes, there's serial killers out there, but not for account for the amount of people that go missing every year, according to the FBI. It's a huge amount. And then when you look in our national forests, from 1900 to about 4 years ago, there was like 15,000 people went into our national forests and never came out. Again, some of them maybe fell off a cliff, fell in a river, got swept down, died next to a tree, got shot when they were hunting from another hunter, but not that amount of people. And then, there's like cases of where they have found weird things, like a 5-year-old boy was with his parents. They were setting up the tent. The kid was like 20 feet away from the father. The father, maybe for a minute, turns around. The kid vanishes. The park department, they sent out, to go looking for him. And they had hundreds of people, looking at the area. They found the remains of a boy on the side of a mountain 15 miles away, a 5-year-old. Now, there's no way a 5-year-old could travel through rivers that, have rapids and all this stuff, and plus climb part of a mountain and be there. So something is still going on here strange. And then, I've had guests like Timothy Cullen that had his implant removed. I had a couple other guests that were, had implants removed from Dr. Roger Lear. So I just want, I'm thinking there's more going on here than a lot of people realize. And that. Yes,
there is. I really do enjoy David Polides' work with Missing 411.
Oh, yes.
And the interesting thing about David is that when he first got into that, he fully expected to find, natural explanations for all these. But the deeper he got into it and the more cases he examined, the more he realized that something of a so-called paranormal bent was going on. And he's just now recently ventured a hypothesis or a speculation on his part. He wouldn't do it for years, but as of late, what he is saying is very similar to what Jenny Randall said in her book, Time Storms, where there are natural rifts, natural portals that exist here on Earth, in which a person can find himself gone from here and to parts unknown. And if you look at Flight 19 back in December of 1945, those 5 airplanes had the state-of-the-art equivalent of GPS. I mean, they had the state-of-the-art navigation equipment. And rumor has it that one of the last transmissions was, oh, my God, they're from outer space. So there may be flying saucers taking people off-world, off-planet, into another realm. Who knows? There may be natural portals. There's a zoologist named Ivan T. Sanderson that actually plotted the 10 vile vortices on Earth. And he was on a show with Arthur Godfrey one time that was a pilot. And when he started talking about where some of these vortices were, Arthur Godfrey, who was a skeptic, got real nervous about it because he remembers he had time anomalies on his watch and stuff going through some of these areas. So there very well may be, like Ivan T. Sanderson said, certain natural portals where if you find yourself in the right geomagnetic conditions in those locations, you can disappear from the Earth somewhere.
Oh, you can.
And we don't know much about it.
But then again, I got to ask you a question. After Timothy Cullen, was abducted, had an implant, had it removed by Dr. Roger Lear, he got really interested in UFOs and still is. He's been on my show, I think, about 3 times. I plan to get him on again. The thing is that he got interested in cattle mutilations. And, we talked about that on one show. And it was really eerie. But then I have another acquaintance who was with the CIA for many, many years, who I wish he never sent me some pictures. But he sent me some pictures, from like Brazil, from the Amazon area also, of abductees that were, again, mutilated. But they weren't cattle, they were humans. They had like their tongues removed, their sex glands removed, their eyes removed with a laser precision. And you're not going to find that, trust me, out in the jungles, let alone even this cattle mutilation stuff that's going on. The laser cuts are actually even more precise than that any doctor could do in any lab on this planet. So it makes me wonder what is going on. Why are they still abducting people after all these years?
Well, I can give you my take on that. I like Linda Moulton Howe, and when I first got into this, and I watched her video on YouTube, An Alien Harvest, I was going along really nicely with it, with the cattle mutilations, but then they switched to the Brazilian account of the human mutilation, which is the same thing. And it occurred to me, what flashed through my mind was artificial intelligence, because I don't think a human being could do that to another person of the same species, because this guy had vital reactions, which means he was fighting the whole time that these instruments were used on him. They had a coring instrument that went up his rectum. They had cookie cutter marks. You can read the autopsy online. And the fact that there's an occasional human mutilation that has the exact same presentation as the bovine and the equine mutilations is really interesting. Apparently, just like Keel said, somebody out there needs a lot of blood. For what purpose is only open to speculation. Dr. David Jacobs thinks that it's a hybridization program, that the blood extractions and the tissue extractions, since they coexisted, the cattle mutilation started around 1965. They've been going on for a couple of hundred years now that we know of, but real heavy since 1965 with the horse named Snippy or Lucky. And then for about 15, 16 years into the late 70s, where it became an epidemic, the alien abduction reports were going really heavy, coincidental to the cattle mutilation. So one can only speculate that they have something to do with each other. And we don't know. Trevor James Constable caught a lot of creatures on infrared film that are very, very similar to, I think it's page 32 in Linda Moulton Howe's book, An Alien Harvest. She's got photographs there, and they just look like amorphous blobs of energy, like plasma creatures or something. They appear to be biological in nature. Now, whether they have an intelligence of their own and they're doing the mutilations for their own purposes, or they're a biological technology that's used by an even more hidden extraterrestrial population for the hybridization program, or whatever they're doing with this soft tissue, it's a really interesting subject. And looking into that and finding out that some of these 1,400-pound cows were lifted into the air and dropped. Some of them are found hung over fences, and they've all got pinkish insides, which means their insides was irradiated. So what appears to be happening is the human witnesses are only seeing just a vague flash of light at night, and then the next day, they find these cows that are absolutely bloodless. And the only way that I can see for that blood to be extracted is through osmosis. If you raise a 1,400-pound cow off the ground with some sort of tractor beam, it could also be a pressurized osmotic type situation where the 4 gallons of blood in a 1,400-pound cow are just extracted through the soft tissue in the skin and goes up into a bladder or into a plasma body. But these creatures seem to have tentacles on them with, as you say, cutting instruments that are so precise, they're laser-like, that can go in between the cells to cut the tissue. So they know exactly what they're doing. And It is sort of a frightening